Cosmos and the media take on the creationists and fail. And we have a panel discussion about the chicken from hell. This is Genesis Week. Welcome to this episode of Genesis Week, the weekly program of creationary commentary on news, views, and events pertaining to the Origins controversy, made possible by you, the supporters of CORE Ottawa, Citizens for Origins Research and Education. Excellence in pirate broadcasting. Genesis Week is the show for intelligent people who think that their brains were intelligently designed. Airing right across Canada on the Miracle Channel, all across the US on the Walk TV, satellites all around the globe, and of course on the Christianima Network on YouTube. Don't forget, if you get lost in cyberspace, you can just punch in with Zulu.com or GenesisWeek.com, where you can find us. And while you're there, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to get extras like Crevo Rants and full interviews with our guests. I'm your host, Ian Juby. I have had a number of viewers write in asking me to address the remake of Carl Sagan's TV show, Cosmos. The new series being hosted by Neil deGrasse Tyson is, of course, the evolutionary propaganda piece one would expect. As a consequence, I wasn't even going to mention Cosmos, let alone spend any time or effort responding to what is only more of the same boring, old, and long ago refuted arguments used as propaganda tools and nothing more. However, things took a rather bizarre twist this past couple of weeks, even prompting viral internet memes. A few weeks back, you'll recall the news of the alleged evidence for gravitational waves in space, which were allegedly evidence for the Big Bang. That news broke right around the time of the Cosmos premiere episode. Astronomer Dr. Danny Faulkner, who is now the senior editor of the peer-reviewed science journal Creation Research Society Quarterly, had given multiple radio interviews regarding the gravity waves research by the BICEP 2 team. Now, in the midst of that, he was also asked about the new Cosmos series on the Janet Mefford show on the Salem Radio Network. Janet asked a very simple question. Now, do they do any interviews with scientists themselves during this whole thing, and do they ever give creationists time? Now, Dr. Faulkner explained that his understanding was that the Cosmos show generally didn't have interviews at all, and that it was based primarily on the host giving narration. Janet replied with, "Boy, but when you have so many scientists who simply do not accept Darwinian evolution, it seems to me that that might be something to throw in there. You know, the old, some scientists say this, others disagree and think this, but that's not even allowed." Faulkner responded with, "No, and not even the recognition that abiogenesis, belief in that is contrary to good science. That was struck in the first episode where he talked about science, how all ideas are discussed. You know, everything is up for discussion. It's all on the table. And I thought to myself, no, consideration for special creation is definitely not open for discussion, it would seem." Faulkner was pointing out how even other scientists, such as Newton and Pasteur, were not even included in the dialogue around abiogenesis on the Cosmos show. Seeing as how the media has evidently failed at their job, we asked Dr. Faulkner to explain what happened next. He wrote, "Shortly after noon the next day, March 21st, the website Right Wing Watch broke the story that I, as a representative of Answers in Genesis, was demanding equal time to counter the message in Cosmos. Apparently, Right Wing Watch monitors that show, and they included a few seconds of the interview to support the story. A few hours later, the website The Wire picked up the story from the Right Wing Watch, and then it was off to the races as other websites quickly repeated the story, sometimes with new embellishments." Indeed, the title of Brian Tashman's post on Right Wing Watch says it all. "Creationists demand airtime on Cosmos for the sake of balance." Tashman, I gotta hand it to you. It takes tremendous skill to mutilate Dr. Faulkner's comments into what you claimed he said. And everyone believed you. It is being gracious to say that you simply must have been misunderstood. Well, everyone, you can even download the Janet Mefford episode as an MP3 or listen to it online so you can hear for yourself what was being discussed and what Dr. Faulkner said. Dr. Faulkner was most certainly not demanding equal time for creationists on Cosmos. It wasn't even on his mind. He was simply answering a question from the show host. In a further bizarre twist, however, the following week, Neil deGrasse Tyson certainly did give creationists some time on the show. In an obvious and frankly ignorant jab at the creationists, in episode 4, A Sky Full of Ghosts, Tyson said, "The Crab Nebula is about 6,500 light years from Earth. According to some beliefs, that's the age of the whole universe. But if the universe were only 6,500 years old, how could we see the light from anything more distant than the Crab Nebula? We couldn't. There wouldn't have been enough time for light to get to Earth from anywhere farther away than 6,500 light years in any direction. That's just enough time for light to travel through a tiny portion of our Milky Way galaxy. To believe in a universe as young as 6,000 or 7,000 years old is to extinguish the light from most of the galaxy, not to mention the light from all the 100 billion other galaxies in the observable universe." Mr. Tyson, how could you make such a glaring error over such a basic point? My viewers are smart and knowledgeable people who already know the answer to your nonsensical and very hypocritical criticism. Ever heard of the horizon problem, Mr. Tyson? You know, that little problem where even in the 13.8 billion years you claim the universe has been around, the energy has been evenly distributed around the universe? In order for that to happen, all that energy has to exceed the speed of light? So the vast distances and the speed of light that supposedly causes a problem for us young universe believers also causes even you a major problem. But there's a real irony here. We creationists use conventional physics, which are well understood and even demonstrated by experimentation, to explain how that light could have gotten here in under 6,000 years. You and the adherents of deep time must use new physics, as you so aptly describe it. Metaphysics, the supernatural by definition. There are multiple astronomers who believe the universe is only 6,000 or 7,000 years old. Do you not think they already thought about this little problem you propose, Mr. Tyson? Well, of course they thought about it, because they all have PhDs in astronomy and physics, and were well versed in the problems because they are problems even if the universe was 13.8 billion years old, like you claim. One of those people, Dr. Danny Faulkner, said, when Tyson made that statement, I wondered why he picked the figure of 6,000 to 7,000 years. Why not some other figure? Obviously, without explicitly mentioning biblical creationists, he clearly was aiming for us. Some have hailed this as a total refutation of recent creation, but Tyson's a bit late here, for that problem was pointed out long before he was even born. And just as those who believe in the Big Bang have offered a solution to their light time travel problem, we've offered possible solutions to our light travel time problem. The irony here is that whatever solution you believe, Mr. Tyson, the solution that you propose for getting energy evenly distributed throughout the universe without exceeding the speed of light, that same solution can then equally solve the same problems for distant starlight in a 6,000-year-old universe. Dr. Danny Faulkner, Dr. Jason Lisle, Dr. John Hartnett, Dr. Russell Humphreys are all well aware of the distant starlight problem and have proposed multiple models explaining how distant starlight can get here in 6,000 years. In fact, you can watch the episode with Dr. Russell Humphreys explaining one of those models. Guess what? Those models also fix your horizon problem. Isn't it interesting that creationists, using conventional physics backed by observational science, can fix the problems in your old universe model? Your old universe model, which requires new physics, metaphysics, a miracle. Speaking of the horizon problem, you'll recall a couple of weeks back in our Big Bang or Big Bust episode, we discussed the research results of the BICEP-2 team, which claimed that the polarized spirals in the cosmic background radiation were good evidence of Big Bang inflation. Now, many had quickly talked about a Nobel Prize for the work, and there was quite the media frenzy that took place over the research. Days after the paper was released, other physicists said, "Not so fast." If you'll recall, we discussed at great length the implications of the evidence for inflation and the Big Bang, and showed the challenges to the evidence. We quoted multiple creationists who pointed out that the cosmic background radiation may not even be from the Big Bang, and that the polarization seen in the radiation may be caused by something else. All other factors would have to be ruled out before this polarization could even be accepted as leftovers from the Big Bang. A paper written in response to the BICEP 2 paper was posted on the arXiv, the very same forum where the BICEP 2 team posted their paper. James Dent, Lawrence Krauss, and Harsh Mathur published a paper entitled "Killing the Straw Man: Does BICEP Prove Inflation?" Now, many of you will recognize the name of Lawrence Krauss, whom we have discussed on the show previously. Krauss is a well-known atheist astrophysicist who most certainly does believe in the Big Bang and inflation, but yet he and the other authors are pulling on the reins and saying exactly what the creationary astronomers were saying. Slow down, verify that this polarization is in fact from gravitational waves and not something else. Now, this was precisely the point John Hartnett made in his article, as well as his point that the cosmic background radiation itself, the radiation which shows the polarization, may also be from something unknown. He pointed out that, like light being blocked, galaxies, stars, and space dust show no shadows in the background radiation. This seems to imply that this radiation was coming from in front of the stellar bodies, and thus the radiation isn't a reflection of the Big Bang from the far reaches of space. Again, all of this points back to the question, was it a Big Bang or a big word? But it's interesting that even atheistic astronomers are saying the very same things about this research that the creationary astronomers were saying. A frighteningly fascinating find of an Oviraptorosaur in the Dakotas sheds light in some unexpected places. The Hell Creek Formation is a famous dinosaur bed, known most notably for the T-Rex fossils found there, and is the same formation from which Mary Schweitzer found the T-Rex bone with soft tissues preserved within. Described as standing about 11 feet tall at the hips and looking like a cross between a cassowary bird and a dinosaur, the dino was nicknamed after the formation in which it was found, dubbed the Chicken from Hell. Its nickname earned it the designated Latin name of Anzu Wyliae, Anzu being a bird-like demon in mythology. Between 3 skeletons that were found, the Carnegie researchers were able to piece together a nearly complete skeleton, with their results published in the PLOS ONE journal. The skeletons were found in what the researchers described as a floodplain. Gee, what a surprise! As we pointed out here dozens of times, dinosaurs, dinosaur eggs, and dinosaur tracks are all invariably found in tidal flats, indicative of the worldwide flood that actually killed the dinosaurs. To help us understand the significance of this find, we are joined by Dr. Noah Lott, founding paleontologist with the Noah Lott Institute. After receiving his PhD, Dr. Lott has spent decades in paleontological fieldwork, including the Hell Creek Formation. He joins us from North Dakota. To argue anything said is Captain Antaginator, world champion of the International Debate Club for 12 consecutive years running now. The captain is faster than a flash mob, can leap over logical fallacies in a single bound, and able to stop a speeding rebuttal. He was credited with single-handedly starting the riots in Egypt, Syria, Ukraine, and Peru. He joins us from his secret lair at an undisclosed location. Dr. Lott, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you tell us the significance of this find?
Well, this is a fantastic find. Finding a feathered dinosaur in North America? We already knew the birds were dinosaurs, and this finding of another feathered dinosaur is another nail in the coffin for the dinosaur to bird deniers. And this fossil was found right here in the Dakotas. What a fantastic find.
Dr. Noah Nothing, you clearly need to eat more brain food. I'd recommend fish. The researchers didn't find feathers on this dinosaur.
What? Didn't you see the artist's reconstruction? It clearly has feathers. Where did you get your information from, pray tell?
I have superpowers. One of those superpowers is the ability to read. I also have high-speed internet in my secret lair. The paper is open access, so it is freely available on the internet. They say right in the paper, it wasn't found with feathers.
Wait, you're saying all the press reports and the artist got it wrong?
The stupid in here is so intense I feel like I've lost IQ points just being on this show. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. Apparently neither you, nor Noah Little, nor the artist, nor the reporters bothered to read the paper. Mensa called. They want their membership card back.
Well, that's neither here nor there. Even if there wasn't any feathers found in those fossils, there's not much doubt they had feathers because we know these dinosaurs were the ancestors of the birds.
Only a bird brain would say that. By that logic, the fossil goldfish I found probably had feathers. Just because there weren't any feathers found with it doesn't mean it didn't have feathers. After all, there was an ichthyosaur found with the same fuzzy fur that was called feathers by you dino-to-bird lovers.
Well, on that note, Dr. Lott, even if these dinosaurs did have feathers, we find birds with completely modern, fully formed feathers in rocks older than these oviraptors or the other alleged feathered dinosaurs. So these dinosaurs can't be the ancestors of the birds.
Well, that's not true. The feathered dinosaurs could be left after the birds had branched off from them. We saw the same thing with Tiktaalik, when tetrapod footprints were found in rocks older than Tiktaalik, which hadn't yet evolved feet. Even P.Z. Myers pointed this out on his Pharyngula blog.
But for evolutionary theory, you rely on the fossil sequence, which you are admitting is backwards. The fully formed feathers appeared before the feathers that had not quite yet evolved, and fully formed feet appeared before feet had evolved. You cannot be your grandfather's father, so are you now admitting that the fossil sequence is irrelevant to evolutionary theory?
Oh, no. If the fossil sequence is in the right order, it's good evidence for evolution. If it's in the wrong order, it's still good evidence for evolution. That was P.Z. Myers' point.
You quote PZ's ludicrous comments as if it's gospel truth.
Well, he does have a degree.
Having a degree is not a license to say stupid things. Winning!
Okay. Let's get back to the oviraptors here, because we were talking about...
Yes, you like oviraptors just a little too much. I still remember that time you called a Troodont egg clutch as belonging to an oviraptor on international television. You really should learn the fine skill of reading. It's a lost art.
Grief. I corrected that mistake multiple times over the past several years. It seems that the skeptics can't figure out how to press play on YouTube, because I pointed out in several videos how dinosaur eggs have been mistakenly attributed to the wrong dinosaur until actual embryos were found in the eggs. And yes, while I mistakenly referred to those eggs as being from an oviraptor when the literature called them Troodont eggs, it turns out that that identity may be wrong. The skeptics mocked, claiming I didn't even have the right continent, because oviraptors only been found in Asia, not North America, where those alleged Troodont eggs were found. And oh look, this chicken from hell is an oviraptor, found in North America decades ago. And only one stayed over from the alleged Troodont eggs. So once again, the skeptics were wrong, even in their condescending and mocking attempts to correct me.
You are still an idiot for calling Troodont eggs oviraptor eggs.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you, Dr. Lott, for coming on the show.
Anytime you need me to point out how the evidence clearly favors evolution, just give me a call.
And thank you, Captain Antagonator, for being with us and elevating my blood pressure.
That's what I do best. My work here is complete.
And we will be back with the mailbag after this short break.
The Complete Creation video series is just that, an exhaustive look at the science, philosophy, and theology behind the creation-evolution debate. In this 12 DVD series, Ian Juby starts off with a 1-hour presentation for the children in God's little creation. He then follows up with almost 11 hours of lecturing for the adults as he walks you through the debate starting at its surprising history and examining the evidence from biology, geology, physics, paleontology, and archaeology. Chances are any question you have about the creation-evolution debate is answered in this video series. With open captions for the hearing impaired, the series is both entertaining and educational. There are also free resources, such as question and answer and proctor sheets for homeschoolers. You can now get the entire set as an instant digital download or on DVD. Visit Ian's Bookstore today.
Woohoo! Mail for me?
Ah! Yep, that's the one. East Vietnamese jumping spider. The venom is so strong that one bite can kill any child and 95% of adults. The surviving 5% typically slip into a coma for 3 to 6 months, only to wake up with permanent paralysis. In response to our mega mailbag last week, Hell of a Deal wrote in on YouTube. Good video, but you did not answer the last mailbox question about adding of genetic material. But you did answer the part of it being a beneficial mutation well. Thanks, love your show and waiting in anticipation for the flood thing. Blessings. Yes, you are correct. I was focused on answering the rest of the question and did not get to that part. He was referring to Treetail's question, which ended with, you also mentioned that it is a loss of information if a large part of the population is lost, but this statement has nothing to do with the surviving bacteria. They have a changed genetic code, which any change is always a gain in information. See information theory. It is an excellent question which I dealt with in Crevo Rant number 80, Nylonase is not new information. I also frequently get asked about the bacterial process called cytrase, which is an identical situation. In both cases, the bacteria underwent a mutation to be able to eat things they don't normally eat. Nylon, for instance. In both cases, the evolutionists themselves concluded that the mutation was not random. In other words, the change in the DNA was directed. Directed by whom? The bacteria themselves. Bacteria are actually able to alter their own DNA, but when they alter their DNA, they're doing so for temporary survivability. And they do this at the expense of other systems within the bacteria. By making these genetic changes, the bacteria can eliminate or reduce other pre-existing cellular systems and functions. So it is a loss of information in the genome, and temporary. The moment the bacteria are removed from the stressful situation that caused them to change, they revert back to the way they were, removing the supposed beneficial mutation. Now, this is well known and actually has a technical name, antagonistic pleiotropy. Dr. Anderson and Dr. Perdue put together an excellent, albeit technical, article on that subject here. Great work, Ian. I have a question. Does it take nearly all your time to research? From a furry cat lover. Thanks for writing in. Yes, most of the work has to do with wading through hundreds of news articles, blog posts, videos, emails, and news feeds every week. Then wading through what we're going to talk about, then conducting research and interviewing experts in the various fields, etc. The actual production of the show may take as much as 10 hours, but the research and writing part typically takes 20 to 40 hours a week. This while I'm doing a full-time job, so it gets quite intense. In a previous show, we discussed the speciation issue. How did all the species arise from the few animals Noah brought on the ark 4,500 years ago? In a rather lengthy and fascinating discussion on this topic among several YouTubers, GD Godsey responded to some comments made by Shaggy the Clown 17 and earned Tyler's tip-top quote of the week. Also, the Earth going from a stable environment to a far more variable ecosystem would account for the amount of speciation observed in the modern world. Depending on food resources and the kind of environment needed to sustain life for any given creature, This would have resulted in an explosion of animal types in the recent past, eventually resulting in stasis as archaeological niches were filled. This would also explain why we find no evidence for evolution in either the natural or fossil records. You and James K. Guy raised some very interesting points. Very interesting points from all of you. Thanks for the comments. I agree. Apparently there was no rain before the flood, as well as apparently no extreme environmental conditions, like snow and freezing cold. These factors alone could cause some remarkable changes in speciation. Stormbringer 2012 wrote a provocative post on last week's show. Juby. I heard about the gobs of money they spent trying to turn a fruit fly into anything but a fruit fly. Never mind spending it on things like roads. No, we have to splurge it on trying to prove a fairy tale, aka evolution, true. Which of course provoked a response from other YouTubers about how he didn't know anything about how science works. The provoked responses provoked John McVeigh to respond. Knowing how science works is irrelevant to whether fruit flies have evolved naturally. Even if the scientists had managed to turn the fruit fly into something else, that would only have proved that it took intelligent, directed, unnatural intervention to cause it to happen. Indeed, after all the decades of experiments that have been conducted on the venerable fruit flies have always produced fruit flies. Even with the horrible extremes the poor critters have been put through in man-made experiments. Exactly as the Bible says, the fruit fly has faithfully reproduced after its kind and has not changed over time, even with unnatural selection and unnatural directed mutations. Thanks for writing in, guys. All right, I got to wrap this up. I'm your host, Ian Juby, signing off for now. Thank you for watching Genesis Week. We know there's a lot of competition out there for your viewership, and we appreciate that you chose to take time out of your day to watch Genesis Week. Remember, you can send in your comments, questions, hate mail, and your translation of the Voynich manuscript to us in a number of ways. You can email us at comments@genesisweek.com, or you can send us a tweet at GenesisWeek. Or you can head on over to GenesisWeek.com, which takes you to our YouTube channel. Find the most recent show and post a comment there. Or you can head on over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/GenesisWeekTV. Remember those words of warning from our Creator and Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ, who said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me." We'll see you next week.
We are a viewer-supported program and need your support to keep this program on the air. Please pray for us, and if you wish to financially support the program, Canadians can make a tax-deductible donation to Core Ottawa, Canada North Post Office Box 72075, Ottawa, Ontario, K2K 2P4. While we cannot offer tax-deductible receipts outside of Canada, donors wishing to financially support the program can do so online at ianjuby.org/donations, and thank you for your support.